Welcome back to the Teacher's AI Cafe. I'm Kane, a teacher and a parent who wants AI to give us back our time. I share practical classroom-tested AI strategies to cut down your workload, improve your feedback and reduce stress so you can get your evenings back and be more present with your friends and family. No jargon, just actionable steps. Grab your mug. Now let's get going. Welcome back to today's podcast. Before we get into today's episode, I'd just like to remind you, if you want to come on and talk about your AI journey or any aspect of how you're using it to benefit your students, whether in a simple way or a really complex way, drop me an email. The second thing is I'm starting up a mailing list. You can join the Facebook group, whichever's easiest for you. The links are at the bottom of the notes there. Yeah, join, that'd be good. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about Claude Skills. I'm going to do, once again, get it back to more specific activities and things we're doing because I've been more the larger use of AI the last few episodes. So we're going to talk about Claude Skills. And this is a good lead-in because skills components actually also come into ChatGPT. So think about it. Have you ever found yourself, I guess, copying and pasting the same prompt in Claude, ChatGPT over and over again? You're not alone. That's how a lot of people do it. And in the previous podcasts, I've talked to teachers and they said, yeah, they just keep a bank of these prompts and they just drop them in there and do it. So this is Skills, or Claude Skills, is a way of actually getting around that. When you don't know exactly what you're actually going to run and you want to be able to do different things as you're working. So what you want to think about is when you paste a long prompt explaining everything, just say you want to teach Year 9 history, use Australian spelling, follow the Australian curriculum, include retrieval practice, differentiate for mixed ability classes, provide teacher notes, and finish with an exit ticket. It works and is repetitive, and that's one of the advantages of AI is repetitive things we can do very quickly and it learns. But it's almost like starting your conversation from scratch. So Claude solved this problem fairly early on with their AI system by introducing this idea of skills. So what exactly is a Claude skill? So Claude Skill is hiring a specialist teacher assistant. Instead of repeatedly explaining how you use the resource created, you simply train the Claude once. That training is saved as a skill. Whenever you ask Claude to complete a task related to the skill, you can automatically remember the preferred way of working. You no longer need to go through the enormous prompts or copy and pasting that you want to do. You get that consistency in that. So instead of doing the basic creative lesson on cause of World War I, Claude already knows exactly how your lesson is structured because your lesson planning skill is already loaded automatically. So think of it like a template, but much, much smarter. So you use the template. We all use templates. I use templates and design templates when I'm doing automation through AI because it allows us to get that consistency back. So you can have a lesson template, an assessment template, worksheet template, and so on. So Claude skill is similar. And a skill can include your teaching philosophy, preferred lesson structure, curriculum requirements, marking rubrics, school policies, examples of your previous work, reference documents, writing styles, and formatting rules. Claude combines these all automatically within the skill that's relevant that you design it. And it's more efficient if you look at like custom GPTs that you get in Claude. That's a similar idea, but the skills are actually more efficient and are more flexible at this stage anyway. So your prompt might be create a Year 8 guided reading in ancient history, write approximately 400 words, use Australian spelling, include vocabulary, comprehension questions, extensions, and teacher answers, curriculum links. You probably use that prompt a dozen times a year. With this skill, none of those instructions are necessary. You'll simply type, create a guided reading on ancient Egypt, and Claude already knows the reading length, reading level, Australian spelling, all the preferred vocab layout. It actually already does that for you because all those instructions are stored inside the skill. So how is this useful to teachers? For one, you'll get consistency, and we know our students like consistency. So the idea is they can build their routines and you don't need to remove that cognitive load. Worksheets are all designed the same. Similar layout, so they're concentrating on what the learning is, not trying to decipher the material that's actually in front of them in terms of structure and process to go through it. So every lesson will start the same instructions. Worksheet would have the same formatting. Assessments will follow the same marking guide. Claude removes the repetition, but allows you to create the same types of resources, so you're saving more time. Also means your resources become, as I said, more consistent. Instead of every worksheet looking slightly different, they follow the same professional standard. The question is, which I've got to experiment with, can I get this to do that and then apply it to something like Canva where I design my worksheets in it. So skills can also include documents. This is where Claude Skills, once again, it's the power of it. It's not limited to the written instructions. You can add supporting documents. So, for example, history might upload your Australian or state curriculum, lesson template, Rosenshine's principles, instructions, literacy strategies, assessment rubrics, examples of excellent lessons. So you can build a really good bank of information designed on. Whenever Claude creates a lesson, you can refer to those documents automatically. There's no need to upload them every time. Now, is it one skill or is it many skills? So many teachers assume when you build one enormous skill that does everything. That's really not actually the best approach, because imagine getting the toolbox and you've got a specific tool for each different doing jobs. You're not going to grab the whole toolbox every time. So the idea is you could develop a lesson planning skill, an assessment skill, a PowerPoint skill, guided reading skill, report writing skill, and basically break these down to their different components. So a real classroom example would be Sunday afternoon, you're looking at your assessments for the week, you've had a bit of a change. I've got this coming up for my classes this term. We've had a bit of a mix-up, so I've got different students. I've got to maybe adjust what I've pre-prepared for them in terms of skill levels or their literacy levels, for example. So without skills, you might spend several minutes writing a detailed prompt explaining how you want the lesson structured. With skills, the conversation would simply be create tomorrow's skills, Year 9 lesson on Black Death, and obviously it'll automatically pull out that information. Below could be, say, explicit instruction, guided practice, independent activities. You differentiate within it. It does it all automatically for you. So why this matters to us as teachers? The real benefit of the Claude is not that it makes the AI more intelligent, because it's exactly where it was. It makes your workflow more intelligent. Instead of teaching Claude how to work every single day, you only need to teach it the once. Now, how do we actually create, save, and use Claude Skills practically? So creating a Claude skill is much simpler than most people expect. You simply write the prompt you've already got. There, start again. Okay, now we're going to go through a lot more detail how to create, save, and actually use Claude's. There, start again. Okay, now we're actually going to step through how to create, save, and use Claude Skills within the actual AI itself. So step one is you actually open the skills library. If you're using Claude with skills enabled, and do switch it on, you can select skills from navigation menu and click on create skill. There is a whole lot of very specific existing skills there, things like sales and marketing, things like that, but there's no educational specific one, so we do need to make our own. So when we go in there, you need to click on create skill. You'll be presented with a simple editor containing the main sections of name, description, instructions, and knowledge, which is your optional supporting documents. These 4 components work together to tell Claude what the skill is and when it should be used and exactly how the task should be performed. Step 2 is give your skill a clear name. This is really important because we want to be able to recall these skills as go into more details when we actually need them. So the name is more important because it serves 2 purposes. First, it helps you organise the skills, and second, it becomes the skill manual's command if you want to recall it. Let's say an example name would be history lesson planner, guided reading generator, assessment writer, PowerPoint creator, parent email writer. So keep them very logical of what they actually do and nice and simple. So keep the name short, descriptive, and focus on one specific task. Avoid vague names like history or teaching assistant, as these give Claude very little actual information about the skill's purpose itself. Second one is step 3 is to write the description. Description tells Claude when the skill should be used. Many beginners make the mistake of writing instructions here. Instead of imagining you're answering the question, under what circumstances should Claude load this skill? For example, use this skill whenever the user asks for a secondary history lesson, worksheet, PowerPoint presentation, or classroom activity aligned with the Australian curriculum. Notice that the description does not explain how to create a lesson. It simply explains when this skill should become active. And I'll talk about the difference of that when we get a bit later. Every time we submit a prompt, Claude quietly checks the skills that you've actually got within your AI and decides whether they are relevant or not. Step 4, you write the instructions, the nitty-gritty. This is where your prompting expertise belongs. Everything you normally copy and paste into your prompts is stored permanently inside the skill. For example, always use Australian spelling, follow Rosenshine's principles of instructions, include learning intentions, success criteria, use explicit instructions, provide a guided reading practice followed by independent activities and so on, end with an exit ticket, ensure historical information is factually accurate. So you do all those checks and things you normally do in your standard prompt. You can use Ryzen or one of the other format prompts that I've covered. I've covered lots of different formats on there. You can use the smart format where you basically break down very explicitly what you want to do. Step 5 is adding supporting documents, and I highly recommend that you do this. And this is an advantage in once they added this to things like AI, custom GPTs, and you want them in your Claude Skills because they are the direct reference material. You can do it because you can control it to only use those reference materials and not go out on the internet and get different content. So if you're teaching something very specific and you've got certain content, you can all drop it in there and it'll tell it to only reference that. And the other advantage, obviously, is quite obvious, is instead of uploading the same documents to every conversation, you just attach them to your skill. For example, lesson plan might include Australian curriculum documents, lesson school templates, assessment rubrics, literacy frameworks, vocab lists, sample lessons, school policies within your skill. Upload those documents. So when the skill is activated, it's going to load those resources at the same time. Think of these as your skill's personal library for it to refer to. Now, step 6 is obviously we want to save the skill. Once you're happy with the name, description, instructions, and supporting documents, click Save. Your skill is now available for any future conversation. So unlike a prompt which disappears when the chat ends, the skill becomes a permanent part of your Claude workspace. Over time, you can build a complete library of specialist teaching assistants, each designed for different classroom tasks. Now, using your skill, there's 2 different ways of doing this. Because once it's saved, it's always within your environment there. Method 1 is automatic activation. So this is how most people use Claude Skills. Imagine you've created a skill that calls History Lesson Planner. You start a new conversation, simply type in, create a lesson on the cause of World War I, as we did earlier in this chat. Claude reads the description of all your skills and says, aha, that's designing a lesson plan. I'm going to grab the lesson planner skill and actually use that to guide the output that it actually produces. And it does it automatically for you. You never have to tell Claude to use the skill. It simply selects the most appropriate one. This makes conversations much shorter because all your detailed instructions are already stored inside the skill. Get that word right. And also in the school of your head. Okay, method 2 is automatic activation with / commands. So sometimes you want to choose exactly the skill Claude that you want to use. So instead of writing an automatic, every skill then automatically becomes active, or you can load it with a / command. / command is simply the skill's name preceded by a /, so /. And for example, if the skill is called History Lesson Planner, you activate manually by typing in the prompt window /history-lesson-planner. I'm quite sure it auto completes. I'll have to double check that for me when I hop off in, but I'll clarify that in the notes I actually send out. Likewise, if you do guided reading generator, you do / guided reading generator and so on. So the idea is we can then pull up specific skills which you actually can use straight away, or specific ones you want to do. So if you just want a loaded lesson plan round doing an escape room, you could just upload the escape room, do your design, and then feed that into a lesson plan with a different prompt if you want to. The idea is you can make, like building blocks of Lego. You can put them all together and then build something larger with a range of lots of small different skills. So basically what the / command is actually telling Claude, use this specific skill for my next request. So you do / type in your thing, then you put your information or your text in or your prompt that you normally do. For example, you might do / history lesson planner space Battle of Hastings. Then it'll use your history lesson planner and the way you design it to actually match it up with the Battle of Hastings information. Same thing, guided reading generator space ancient history. We're going to do around ancient history. Claude interprets everything after skill as the name of the task to perform. Because the skill already knows your preferred structure, formatting that teaching style, there's no need to repeat instructions. What you could do is if you're doing a guided reading, you could just do it, but then you could drop your content documents in there for what you want converted into a guiding reading format. For example, you might have a large comprehension resource and you drop it in here, you can convert it very quickly into a guided reading format, and then see if you're going to do that differently for your class. So when should you use slash commands? So unless you're doing something specific, you probably don't need to. You could probably just use the automatic loading. But if you're not sure whether it is actually loading, doing what you want, you can use the slash commands to be sure 100% that's using that skill to do that task. So automatic activation is best for 99% of the time. However, slash commands are used for when several skills could match your request. So if you're doing something and the way you design your skills, you want to include a few of them in there. You want to complete control over the skill being used. Like I said, I just specifically want to use that one skill. You have similar skills for different purposes, and that's where I'm working towards. So I've got one, say, content thing, but I want to be able to use different skills to produce very specific, different types of resources for my students. And you want the fastest possible workflow because you know it's going to use that skill, that workflow straight away to produce what you want. So therefore, it's not going to produce all the other content it's automatically loading in the background. So for example, if you type, teach me about ancient Egypt, Claude might not know whether you want a lesson, a PowerPoint, or a worksheet or an assessment. So by typing PowerPoint-creator, ancient Egypt, it's very clear in what skill it's going to load up. Removes all your ambiguity there. Basically makes it specific to the skill you want to load. I can't get that word out today. Can Claude use more than one skill? Yes. Claude can automatically combine multiple skills if they are relevant. For example, a history lesson might activate history lesson plan, Australian curriculum assessment, and history accuracy checker. So each skill contributes its specialist knowledge to produce a more complete response. Updating your skills. Your teaching skills will change over time. So should your skills. Perhaps you decide every lesson now to include a retrieval grid, explicit vocab instructions, AI literacy opportunities, source analysis. Rather than editing dozens of prompts, simply open the skill, update the instructions, and save it again. So you can edit your existing ones. Every future lesson generated with a skill can automatically use an updated approach. So the idea is you want to build yourself a teaching toolkit. For example, under history, you might have lesson planners, guided reading, source analysis, assessment writing. English might be a creative writing coach, easy essay feedback. Oh, it's working well today, school holidays, eh? Reading comprehension creators. Admin might be parent email writer, student report comments, staff meeting minutes. Each skill becomes a specialist, does one task exceptionally well. So instead of remembering dozens of complex prompts, you can simply ask Claude naturally, use one quick slash command, slash lesson Gallipoli, slash reading ancient Rome's assessment, slash assessment World War II. Within seconds, basically, it's then going to apply your skill and do it for you. So this has been a reasonably long episode today. I've talked many different ways I spoke through it. I will produce a document from that. Of course, I'm going to use AI to do that, much easier, whether Claude or ChatGPT, though I do say since the latest update, ChatGPT is actually producing some really good worksheets, getting towards what Claude was doing in the prompts. So check those out. You can be able to get that either by subscribing to the mailing list. What I'm going to do each week, when I get the summary, I'm just going to either email them out to everyone on my mailing list, or I'll drop it in the Facebook group for the people in there who have questions. So, like I said, keep up the good work. Got any questions or specific things you want me to do, I will certainly address them. You can post them in the Facebook group or drop me an email direct. Like I said, I'm going to go back and focus on the specific different platforms, mainly Claude and ChatGPT and Notebook LM. They're the three ones I mainly use, and I find they pretty much cover everything I do. And I might look at video next. I've been trying to make educational videos in Notebook LM, and they're looking pretty good. So anyway, till next time, keep up the good work, and I'll talk to you soon.